G'day folks and welcome to Australian UFO Sightings official podcast. I'm your host Anthony Goodall and you're listening to Encounters Down Under. Here we invite guests on the show to tell us about their encounters with aliens and UFOs, where most of our episodes were streamed live from our Facebook page, which gave listeners the opportunity to ask questions to our guests regarding their encounter. If you have had an encounter and would like to be a guest on the show, please get in touch with us. You can send us a message through our Facebook page, Encounters Down Under, or send us an email at australianUFOsightings@outlook.com.au. Be sure to join us on Facebook and share with your friends and family to help us grow, and hopefully encourage others to come forward with their encounter. If you're an iTunes listener and a fan of the show, why not give us that 5-star rating and review, and you could have your review featured on the podcast. But enough of that, let's get into what you've been waiting for. So kick back, relax with your favourite beverage, and enjoy the show.
Greetings, mortals, and welcome to the spooky edition of Encounters Down Under, where I'm joined by Triffon and Grub, who share their bone-chilling experiences and give a little lesson on Halloween history. Enjoy. Welcome, everyone, to another Encounters Down Under live episode, Halloween Special Edition. Thank you for delivering me your souls. Anyway, sorry for the delay, but we should begin this show. And what better than bring Triffon and Grub to the show to tell us about these experiences of their own and a little bit of the history in regards to Halloween. So boys, welcome to the show.
Mate, that is the spookiest welcome I've ever gotten onto any show, I must say. And you didn't tell me we were doing... I would have done a costume too, man. You know what I mean? I could have pulled something together.
My apologies.
But I appreciate it. It's okay, mate. It's okay. But Halloween, All Saints Day, Samhain, Dia dos Muertos. There's many interpretations of Halloween. And there's some interesting research because Halloween as a festival, as a celebration of the dead, as a honouring of the flame, as a celebration of things that have passed, actually happens all over the globe and has happened all over the globe for about, I would say, around 12,800 years. Now that's giving away why I think we celebrate Halloween. Because what you boys don't understand is, you might understand, and some of the listeners might understand, is that right now, as we sit and record this, we are currently spinning through the Taurid media stream. Now, the Taurid media stream, we pass through that twice a year, in June and July, and then October and into November. Like right now, the Taurid media stream is roughly 30,000 kilometres wide. We orbit at roughly 2,000 kilometres plus a day, which means it takes us about 15 days to get through the Taurid media stream. Now, back in the day, Graham Hancock used to say that twice a year we walk across a 6-lane highway with a blindfold on and hope there's not a truck coming the other direction. Now, what does this have to do with Halloween? What is Halloween? It is honouring the dead. It is honouring the flame. It is honouring the stars. There's stories, indigenous cultures and stories about the hair from the skies and the fire from the sky in these old stories. Now, 12,800 years ago, the world ended in a cataclysm that we can't even begin to understand. And the civilization that was before then, I believe, and so do many others, it was the megalithic civilization that we see evidence of all over the planet. Because not only is the celebration happen all over the planet, but one of the 4 points that these megalithic sites are aligned to is this period of time in the year. Now, there is again, with these Halloween stories or these Day of the Dead, there is many stories, right? It's the oncoming of winter. It's the last big harvest before winter. Things are dying, right? Honouring the dead. However, there's an interpretation, in places that still really hang on to the Day of the Dead, like in South America, is they really do a big thing about it. North Korea, South Korea, China, name a continent, okay? In the Northern Hemisphere, the pagan traditions celebrated as well. So it's another one of those ones that's celebrated all over the planet at the same time for a long time. And it's not like they didn't have the internet, mate. You know what I mean? They didn't talk to one another, supposedly. So there is a global honouring of the dead during this period of time. Maybe they are honouring the memory of the day or the time that the world ended, which is why it's spooky, which is why it's said to be during this period of the year that the veil is thinner. Now, why would the veil be thinner? If 90% of the population was wiped out 13,000 years ago around this period of time from rocks from the sky out of the Taurid meteor stream, the veil would be thinner. That amount of life, if we're to believe everything is energy, our souls go somewhere else. If a vast percentage of life on this planet was snuffed out almost in an instant, then that veil between death and life would definitely be thinner. However, I think Halloween, and look, this is not just some esoteric research. There's anthropology studies into this. There's proper in-depth research that's been done into this topic, where Halloween is potentially us celebrating the day the world ended. And that genetic echo through time continues to this day. Now, obviously, it's morphed into something else, you know. However, at the core of it, like we see at the core of a lot of these things, the religions, the occult, all this stuff, the core of it is a memory, or is something that was once before, if you know.
Oh, hang on, no. I was going to say, Anthony, you've got a filter on. You just put a filter on.
Yeah. So yeah, that is. Oh, sorry. The Grim Reaper was here earlier. He came to collect our soul. But yeah, that is, when we talk about Halloween, that is potentially what Halloween actually is. It's us remembering the last time the world ended.
Yeah, for sure. And look, I just want to touch on, people in Australia, they go and carry on and go, oh no, we don't celebrate Halloween down here because it's un-Australian, it's all being commercialised by America and blah blah blah, it's all American tradition and blah blah blah. And it's like, well, hang on, no, it's a lot deeper than that. It's like, Halloween is celebrated, like you're saying, all worldwide, you know, there's a lot more to it. And you know, yeah, sure, America has commercialised it, but you tell me what person in Australia doesn't celebrate an American commercialised event, you know, look at Easter and Christmas, Valentine's Day. All these sort of little seasons, holiday seasons and stuff like that, where it's all been commercialised by America. So you tell me, you don't celebrate these days because it's not an Australian tradition. Well, okay, have that for an example.
All of them are now. Well, Christmas was about giving gifts. That is, there's a bit of it. Gifts were given at Christmas, but they were given to the tree to honour the tree spirits.
There's
in the pagan understanding of that.
Yeah, there is another one actually. The where kind of state police came from was because of the celebration of Christmas. So it was crazy. Like, it was basically those 5 days was the 365 days. Those 5 days were just given, and that's why it became the 12 days of Christmas. And you would go crazy. They were godless days, you know. And they would all get shit-faced. And basically, the church were like, we need to bring this back to the church. And so they started to really bring the celebration back into the church, which removed all that. And then they actually made like a security force to actually go around during that time to stop people from going crazy. And that was then instituted and became the police force. Thank Christmas celebration for that.
Well, no. Yeah, well, it depends on which tradition.
It's changed again too.
But if we come back to Australia, Anthony, as far as Halloween's concerned, that's not true. The Indigenous culture in Australia do celebrate Halloween. They do celebrate not Halloween as we understand it now. This is a problem with cultural interpretation, yeah? But do the Indigenous of Australia have a celebration of the dead during this time of year? Is there legends and Dreamtime stories of this? Yes. Yes, there is.
Oh, really? Yeah, wow.
Yes.
That I would like to find out. Yeah.
Yeah, there is. There's Dreamtime stories that during, and it's not all the same time, right? It's a different, but it's what's interesting and why you bring it back to the Torrid media stream is it's within these 2 weeks. It's the end of October, early November. So, because from the research I did early on, I think the festival's in early November in Korea, and it's in a different place in Tibet, and so it's not the 31st has been commercialized as
Even Korea.
Halloween.
Well. Oh, wow.
Right? Yeah. Korea, Russia, China, Tibet, India, and
Mexico,
echoes from Australia, Mexico, South America. This is a cross-cultural global thing, and it's different versions, right? It's not because we get the Western commercialized version of it, but the overarching thing, it's about fire, it's about honoring the dead, honoring the ancestors, communicating with the ancestors during this period of time, and there's all these stories about darkness, and it's but what if it's a genetic echo of the day the world ended, right? I mean, it actually the research on it makes a lot of sense. And again,
Easter, go to Ireland. Ireland had the same idea. So
yeah, Samhain or Samhain in Ireland. Yeah, yep, yeah. So all through Europe as well. Yep. And
it was the idea of their souls being captured. So it was kind of they even there's all these old black and white the old photos from the 1800s. They used to dress up with like potato sacks on, and it was to look scary, so their soul would not be taken, as if they were thinking that they were going to be taken. Yeah, and I think that's the Samhain idea, but the actual dressing up came from there, wasn't it? The actual
absolutely. But also the key is who takes them, right? There's these stories of the gods and the goddesses.
Sweeping broom.
Right?
Yeah.
Sweeping broom. There's hair references. And the thing about hair references as far as medias and stuff is that they call them like angel hair, right? So it's like if you imagine a massive meteor stream plowing into the atmosphere, what does it look like? It looks like strands of hair. And the goddess of death with her long hair comes down and takes your soul, right? You know what I mean? Like yeah. I mean, there's more of this mythological stuff that does translate into, it becomes story. However, I think, especially with these traditions that have survived, I mean, you can go into Christmas. Christmas is very interesting. You can go into Easter as well, because, I mean, Easter and Christmas are just the summer and the winter solstice. Okay, that's all they are. And it's the church that adapted those celebrations in the Northern Hemisphere. However, it's just the opposite down here, right? So it's the winter and the summer solstice for us, the opposite, because we're on
we're going into
we're in the bottom side of the planet, right? We're on the other side, other part of the cycle.
The horses are following. There is total reversals with things. That's interesting, because if you think of like breeding with different animals and things like that, that's the time now. This is that late spring.
And there's other layers to this as well.
Out, race and stuff like that. Oh, we've got the races, the Melbourne Cup coming up too.
Yeah, it comes on Tuesday.
So we've got the time while the crops are growing. You've got to go out and do all the other shit, prep up for that harvest. So in the meantime, you've got that time to races.
Yeah, well, the summer solstice is a massive celebration, right? I mean, if you layer that over the Aussie Christmas, right? How we celebrate Christmas. I mean, the thing about Christmas in the Northern Hemisphere is they would bring a tree inside, right, to honour the tree spirits for the coming harvest, right? So in the north, it's the depths of winter, in mid-December, right? And proper winter, not winter down here. We're talking snow and all that sort of stuff, right? And basically the winter solstice would be the last great celebration because it's the shortest day of the year. After that, the days start to get longer. The sun starts coming out. We start planting. So basically, the celebration of Christmas was you come together with family.
Mm.
They pool together whatever resources they have left to have one big celebration to honour the tree spirits and honour the earth and honour the cycle, so the coming harvest would be fruitful. And in order to honour the tree, they would bring a fir tree. And I wish old mate, the Dutch guy, was in here because he'd probably elaborate much more on this. The fir tree, and they would actually decorate the tree, right? And they would leave gifts.
Evergreen tree, yeah.
Yeah, they would leave gifts under the tree to honour the tree spirits. But there would be an element of feasting and gift giving. And the tree is true. One of the only times you can use a 5-pointed star in the Abrahamic faith is during Christmas. You can put a 5-pointed star on a Christmas tree. All other times of the year, the 5-pointed star represents the pinnacle, obviously. And, you know, that's considered a occultist satanic symbol when it's really just...
Is Venus... Sorry to interrupt. Can you guys find out if this is the time that Venus comes up, or is that out of sync? Is another cycle that maybe when this was around, did Venus come up at summer or mid-winter?
No, it's sort of a bit out of sync in itself there with the rotations of the cycle where Venus
It's every 7-year cycle or something.
Something like that. So yeah, in that sort of time, I think it'd be pretty inaccurate to say Venus would be coming into play, but it should be at some point over the next few weeks, I'd imagine. I can't really recall that sort of things.
Oh, right.
Yeah, it should be coming up.
Okay, yeah.
But yeah,
but what I
usually
find
sit around
interesting,
summer
boys...
on the east.
Well, Sirius, actually. Yeah, Sirius.
Yeah, Venus is going to come back for us pretty soon, I think. We'll start seeing Venus again in the sky. I haven't seen her in a while. However, the echoes, boys, we come back to Halloween. The fact that this celebration still lasts to this day, I wonder whether there is a genetic echo, right? We all have a genetic understanding that once upon a time something terrible happened, right? I mean, that's the Noah story, that's the Armageddon story, that's every single indigenous story. It all comes back to the same thing. And these other ones, right? I mean, talk about the summer solstice, you know, it's now about a rabbit that delivers chocolate, right? Eggs in particular, right? What's the rabbit and the egg signs of? Fertility.
Yeah.
Right? So during summer solstice, you would give presents of painted eggs, right? Because, like Grub said, in the summer solstice, the harvest is coming in, right? You're about to bring in the harvest that's going to get you through the winter, and you want that final grow to be good. And the summer solstice is about using that bountiful, the harvest you've had, to honour that for the last, planting and harvest of the time. All these things, regardless of what religious context has been put on them, the key parts of the actual celebration, humans celebrate that regardless. And that's what I find interesting, right? Because no one goes to church at Christmas anymore. No one goes to church at Easter anymore, right? We still get rabbits and chocolate eggs, and we still put a tree up and do the food and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
we go through the motions of what's what we believe what is supposed to be now.
Yeah, that's right.
And,
but that
you see on TV, and
is the genetic echo. Yeah.
But I mean, for the genetic thing, because it was such an extreme event, if people did starve and it did reduce the population, then there would be a shift in an adaptation to certain food sources and scarcity during that period, which would leave a real genetic imprint of that drama. And I mean, mentally, how that would translate mentally into seeing the sun going into winter at that time, especially for the Northern Hemisphere, there could just as well be a genetic throwback to coming into winter. I mean, we already naturally prep winter, especially the Northern Hemisphere, and the amount of wood they save up, all the pickling and all the berries and shit they pick and preserve, But we don't do that here. It's totally different, and in Thailand and stuff too, it's all very fresh. Everything's fresh. But definitely, there's a change in climate every year at that time, which would also add to that bump. But the fact that there is an imprinted what the other thing is too, boys.
what is Armageddon in the Bible, right? So let's take the religious context. Armageddon is rocks from the sky, floods, volcanoes, storms, right? It's everything. That's all very scary, and we perceive that as being one of the most terrible things that could happen. But that's actually a fairly good description of what did happen. You know what I mean? Like, that's what did happen. Rocks came from the sky. There was storms. There was volcanism. There was continent-wide wildfires. There was, again, like I said, we can't even begin to imagine what happened, right? That is the echo as well. Like, there was a story of destruction in the past that we tell that story, and every culture tells that story in their own variation. Why? Because we must remember, right? We must remember that time when the world ended.
Definitely. So look, I'm going to try and point out to everyone there, like, who's listening here. You guys can join the show as well. Just hit that link that's in the description there, and you'll get onto the show here. We'll get you in when we can, and obviously we're going to start talking about our spooky stories and experiences there. And obviously that's the whole idea of the show is, like, get a bit of a creepy, spooky vibe to it. So I guess we'll go and jump into that, boys. Who wants to go and start with this spooky or scary story before we one of our listeners wants to jump in and join in?
Go on, Grub. Go on, Grub.
Give a Yowie story. My first experience. I was about 7 years old. We were down in Bungonia Caves in southern Blue Mountains. Probably about, I think it's about 2.5 hours out of Sydney. And there's some great caves there too. One of them was used as a cathedral by the settlers. One of them's 300 meters deep, so you got all these ladders and all these massive stalagmites that you got to climb down all the way down the bottom. It was all fun doing that. Then we camped there the night in a big, probably about 200 meter circle radius camp cleared area. We were the only people there, and my old man parked right on the edge of the tree
underground.
line.
Were you underground or at the?
We'd gone caving that day, but the camping ground is just the local area. It's a flat clearing area, but the tree line is just natural bush next to it. So he parked right up next to the bush, and I practically had to walk into the bush to get out of the car. So we had the day caving. That was all cool, and then that night we still had the overalls on, the big zip up things, and I'm getting all itchy. I'm like, God, this is getting uncomfortable. So I'm like, I'm gonna go over to the car and get changed, and they're like, off you go. And I'm looking over, and it's like, it's a good maybe 50 to 100 meters, and I'm like, oh, it's pretty far, and I'm pretty young, and I'm like, oh, okay, all right, I'll go. So put the headlamp on, and off we go. I get about halfway, and then all of a sudden there's a growl, like an ominous growl, as if don't come any further, and I stopped dead in my tracks. And this is a good 50 meters from the car, and the growl I could hear as if like a dog growling to make you stop, but it was deep. It was really deep, guttural, and I stopped dead in my tracks. And then I looked back at the camp, and I looked at the car, and I realised I'm about halfway, and I'm like, oh, God, I can't freak out, keep going. Took 2 more steps, and then mid-step, another growl came out. And I couldn't see anything over there, but there was something large growling at me. And I turned and went straight back to the camp. And I'm like, why didn't you get changed? And I'm like, there's something over there growling at me. Like, what do you mean growling? There's nothing over there. I said, no, there's something over there. Like, oh, don't worry about it then. Forget about it then. And I to this day could not explain it. But it was loud. It wasn't that it was loud. It was deep and guttural and drawn out. Like someone like growling at a dog. But like it would shake you kind of. It was freaky. But
you do hear that's the noise too. It's like a deep guttural from another. Like if Anthony's still got his voice change there, get back into that voice and growl. That'd be like what it would be. You know what I mean?
That wasn't me, mate. I know what you're talking about.
Oh, you were late.
Yeah.
No, this is the filter.
Well, I tell you what. I thought about one the other day that I don't know if I've told this on any podcast. So this is a new story, and it's a little bit of a trippy one. It's a spirit experience. So my end of high school was spent in Arnhem Land, northeast Arnhem Land, in a place called Nhulunbuy or Gove. There's an aluminum mine out there, and we had a Queenslander house, and I had the room on the corner, and I had bunks, right? And it was only me in the room. I had one bunk set up along the wall, then I had the other one as like an L shape, right? And I think I'm 16. I'm pretty sure I had my license, so I'm 16, right, or more. And I kept waking up, and sort of like, because I was against the wall, and I look in the corner of the room, and I feel this energy, right, or see this shadow, basically. And this happened for a few nights, and it would scare me, but it didn't seem malevolent, right? It didn't seem like it was out to get me. It seemed like it was hiding, right? It seemed like it felt to me like it was a young female presence, and it was sort of like curled up in a ball in the corner, looking to hide. And this went on for a few nights, and I sort of began to get more confident with it, and I began talking to it, and there was a bit of an understanding, right? And then one night, and I still don't understand this day why I said this, but I said, listen, if you need to rest, it's okay. There's another bed there. You can use that bed to rest, right? And there was that night, this presence didn't get into the bed. The next night, it did. Now, I can't say, I mean, this is the 90s, so there's no phones, there's no cameras, you know what I mean? There's nothing, right? So I saw just like the shadow. I wouldn't have said the blanket was up, or you know what I mean, but this presence moved to the bed, which kind of freaked me out. However, even then, it didn't seem malevolent. It seemed like it was grateful, and I fell asleep and had a really good night's sleep, because I remember that, and then I never saw or felt this presence ever again. Yeah, and that's one I don't think I've told, but that was a trippy experience. It went on for about a week, every night for a week, and culminated, and culminating in me inviting this thing to rest, and then as soon as it rested, it left.
That's right. So what sort of gave you the idea that it wants to come and rest?
After the period, I remember, look, a little bit of a backstory about me as a teenager in the 90s. Teenagers I don't know how old you boys are, but I was, X-Files was big back then. Like, I was into witchcraft and the occult and all that stuff. It was big back then. And so I was probably open to that. And I had some other interesting experiences that I may or may not share tonight. However, this presence, when I got scared of it, it got scared of me, right? It was worried about. It was more. I felt from an energetic standpoint that it was more afraid of me than I was of it. And after a night or two, I don't know whether it was my eyes, because this would happen in witching hour, right? It would have been 2-3 o'clock in the morning. I would wake up and I would see this thing in the corner, because I had a street light. We lived in a cul-de-sac in this big Queenslander, so the street light sort of came through my window, but I had a curtain, so it was just enough light, especially when it was in the middle of the night, to see not much, but there would be a shadow in the corner, and it seemed like it was scared. It seemed like it had fear, and it just kept coming back to that space, because after the first night, I wasn't really afraid of it, because I realized that it feared me. And I don't know what caused me to ask it to rest, right? Maybe it was a restless spirit, man, that had been who knows, right? I don't really understand what caused me to ask it to sleep. However, I did, and then it left.
That's crazy.
That is
You know,
freaky.
It's like, but it was shadows. So you're saying it was more of a there was no actual light emitted. It was more one of them kind of a shadow, kind of a
yeah. It was
like a little shadow person.
Yeah, it was corporeal, but it was dark. It wasn't light. Yeah, it was a shadow. And I say, if
That's
you were to
crazy.
ask
You
me
hear it
what
often.
was,
There's a lot of it, but normally they're a lot creepier. But it's actually been seems to be more impersonal like that, more of a. You actually had other feelings from it, you know.
well, I got that it was hiding, right? It was scared, and it was hiding in my room for whatever reason, you know. Yeah, that's what I got from it.
Yeah,
But
my
it was
understanding
dark,
from shadow people is that like they're a bit skittish. You know, they'll sort of like they'll play games to try and hide from you, or try and run through your peripheral sort of view there. And then there's other times where people will see them overstretched and looking directly over them while they're sleeping. That's sort of my experience with shadow people, but never have like something like an interaction with them. Never like something like that.
Yeah, look,
I have come across shadow people actually. Once people became more attuned, the shadow people became a relative or a spirit or something. That it was just for the time being, as we see it, there's like a filter that just looks like a black mass until it, I don't know, somewhere for whatever reason, I don't know, someone popped their kundalini or some shit and fucking all of a sudden they had image. There wasn't just like a black mass.
Oh, I get you. So they see it for what that actually
but it's
is.
just, yeah. It takes like maybe training to be able to then identify that maybe that creepy black shadow that's looking over you is actually your dead grandmother or something.
Yeah. Still, that's a creepy
Man,
way
come
to do it,
on, you got to
mate.
put a different suit on, eh?
Yeah, that's right. I don't know. I
But see,
don't know
man,
what to
there's that-
prefer. Shadow person or grandma
there's that
staring
other-
at me.
yeah. There's that other interpretation too, boys. At that time of night, that's witching hour. You know what I mean? 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. That's when, you know, whichever side of the planet you're on, that's when the veil is thinnest because it's the depth of night. You know, all sorts of weird stuff happens at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. I had another ghost story actually. I just remembered as well. So a bit younger this time, sort of 12, 13, somewhere now. I used to live in Ballarat in Victoria, and back then. And one of my good mates, his older brother, Craig, bit of a loose unit, old Craig, and, you know, was on the wrong side of the track, if you know what I mean. And he loved riding his motorbike, right? He had a KX125 from memory, and there was a track that used to run beside the creek where I grew up in Brown Hill. And the thing is, it was a single track, and bikes used to ride both directions. And anyway, this day, he went for a ride. But some of the odd things about this day is that he actually told his mum that he loved her. He told everyone, actually. Like he did some weird stuff that morning that people were a little bit like, it wasn't him, you know what I mean? He was a brash teenage kid on the wrong side of the law. However, before he went for a ride this day, he expressed gratitude and love for most of the people in his life for some reason. Comes to pass that he's going this way, another bike's going that way. This bike basically jumps over him, and basically the front wheel takes his helmet off, and the engine block basically takes his head off. Okay, that's what happened. So anyway, his younger brother Steve was a really good friend of mine, and I just happened to be at Steve's house that day. We were just messing around, you know what I mean? And when this happened, Steve asked if I could stay with him that night, you know what I mean? Like, he was a bit upset. Obviously, his brother had just died. And I was on the floor on a mattress, and it must have been about that time, witching hour, right? I woke up, and for all money, I saw Steve and Craig having a conversation on the bed, right? Craig was sitting up there and talking to Steve, because we knew Craig, and obviously Steve's was his stepbrother, and I remember watching it for, I don't know, 20 seconds or something, and then going, this isn't for me. And I just went straight back to sleep. However, yeah, woke up to see, and Steve said the next day that Craig come and visited him. And I'm like, whoa, that's it.
It sets reality.
Yeah. Right? Because I was, it's a time of grief. I'm not going to say anything like that. Was your dead brother here last night? You know what I mean? But he volunteered that information the next morning. Yeah, that was a weird one.
Yeah, it's not the first time I've had someone there. I had a guest on my show there a while back there where they had their brother come in through outside there and actually have a full conversation with him, made a cup of tea and everything, sat there, conversation. It wasn't until they came back that next morning, sat at the same table, like, oh shit, this happened last night, blah 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 blah. So it's sort of weird. Like I know, we're talking about past relatives or something, where they've come in to talk to us there, and it sort of makes you wonder, but was this a dream or not? But then you're saying you've seen them both there from your side of the perspective. It sort of sets a reality there actually are realms there where people are interacting directly to these spirits.
Well, I tell you what, I don't know if I told this one. I have told this story on my show. However, my granddad passed away. I think I told it on the general show.
Yeah, you told me as well on your show when you had me on.
Yeah, that's right.
Yep.
The whiskey.
Yeah. Well, yeah, there's two stories. There's the port, and then there's what happened at his funeral. So we're carrying his body out. Like the eldest grandsons, he wanted them to be his pallbearers. That was his, wishes. So we're carrying. I'm literally holding my grandfather's coffin. Right. This is after they did a full Masonic ceremony over his coffin. By the way, we can come back to that if you want. However, walking out, and my granddad was a Holden man. When I mean a dying wool Holden man, okay? He got every brand new Holden to the VN Commodore in 1990, and he babied that car for the rest of his life, right? And I walk out, and I notice that the hearse is a Ford, right? And I'm overcome with grief, right? I'm over, granddad meant a lot to me and all that sort of stuff, right? And as I'm sliding his coffin into the hearse, I hear his voice in my head, as clear as a bell. They could have got me a fucking Holden, right? And I was like, yeah, I know, right? And then it cottoned on to me that I'm at his funeral and I'm sliding his body, and he seriously as loud as a bell, right? And then we go and get blind drunk, right? Just on a different level. And Granddad used to collect port, right, and wine. And my uncle had grabbed some of whatever was left out of the cellar. He hand dug his own cellar, by the way. Just got bored one day and got under the house with a shovel and started digging, right? No joke. Yeah. And dug this wicked little cellar. Right? You right, mate?
I've got no cellar. I don't know what you're talking about. I've got no UFO. I don't know what you're talking about.
That's a dungeon.
Yeah.
Sassy, get back in there.
Yeah, there's no spinning pool of mercury underneath your shirt. So yeah, as we start celebrating, the uncle brings out the best bottle of port that Granddad had, right? Now, not only when we pour the cups is there one extra cup randomly, there's also only enough port for everybody and then one extra, right? So synchronicities, you know what I mean? Anyway, we all agreed that that one was obviously for Granddad. And we put it up on the thing around the fire and we go back to drinking. An hour or so later, someone starts getting a bit pissed because who drank Granddad's port? The port's gone. The cup's there, but the port's gone. And then everyone started to get a bit titchy because who did that? And then it became clear that nobody did that. And then a bit of a hush over the wake, you know what I mean? That realization that, maybe Granddad had a drink. You know what I mean? Like,
That's cool.
And I think some of my uncle and my cousins had different interactions through that day, not dissimilar to my own. Like whether it be feelings or energy or just something odd happening. You know what I mean? Yeah, I think the veil is thinner. And the other thing about Granddad is he was a 3rd degree Mason, so he knew stuff that we didn't know about life and death and these sorts of things. So did that give him a surer foot to act from?
I was just thinking that.
That's one of their missions, is to successfully take their knowledge to the next world.
Yeah.
And then bring it back and remember who you are.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the actual alchemic principles that they were trying to enshrine, or at least accomplish, which apparently the yogis were doing this 70,000 years ago.
Yeah.
So
this is just
but
back to the gods.
It's intrinsic. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's also after they did a full Masonic passing through to the next realm ceremony over his coffin with a hand basket that looks like the handbag that's in every single, the mystery handbag that's in all the carvings and stuff. There was the square of loincloth, and I think it was the fir tree, it was the acacia. They did a full ceremony, and they mumbled to each other. They didn't actually speak the words aloud to the group. However, they did it. And again, I was pretty upset at that point in time, but I didn't fail to. I'm like, I know you're upset, but you got to register the details of the Masonic funeral stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, it may have been something similar to the idea of Isis and Horus, because that original obelisk was made out of cedar. And the cedar was supposed to be Osiris's missing phallus that they couldn't find, that she had to reattach to be able to come and bear Horus. And they're supposed to be the sons of Horus or something. So there's a lot of that from back then. And even then, they're supposed to be, back to Halloween, they were the survivors of that cataclysm.
Yes, of that cataclysm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they were part of the
and they were
rebuilding
worshipping
world.
bull.
Yeah.
They were big bull worships.
And the other thing about
Taurus,
is that Taurid meteor stream, the meteoroids or the asteroids, or that is a former comet that we pass through, comes out of the Taurus, right? Comes out where those rocks come from is out of the astrological sign of Taurus, and on the shoulder of the bull is what? The Pleiades, right? Which you might remember from some of our earlier episodes, is part of the grand creation story of Homo sapiens sapien as well. Is
back to
creepy stories, man. Go on.
Yeah,
what else you got,
Here we go. I had a friend of mine. They they all went camping with my little brother, and they were out at Nunes. If you know the back of the Blue Mountains, it's a big area called Nunes near the Zigzag Railway, and it's huge, big plateau, big sandstone plateau with some gullies and stuff, and some old sandstone eroded stuff, out in the middle of nowhere, right? They decided to go out full driving, so they had to use full drives to get at where they're at. They got smashed. They got shit faced. They camped, and they all had the separate tents. And one of them, they all heard him making love with someone.
Oh.
And then footsteps walk away. And the next morning, everyone's just like, "What?" And then they just went back to sleep. And next morning, they woke up and they go, "What was that?" They go, "Oh, it's just some woman just came into his tent." And they did their business. Just got up, left, out in the middle of nowhere.
Wow.
So it was a real person though. I don't think it was a shadow person, but.
So where did she come from?
No idea. Where did she go? They're out the fucking middle of nowhere, man. It's just some woman walked in, just out of nowhere, and just walked straight into his tent. His name is Yeti. we all call him the Yeti from Bowl Mountain, right? So he's
Right.
yeah.
That's different.
And how did he
Yeah.
tell that story that this chick just came in and whatever and left?
Yep, and bear witness. Everyone else had to bear witness because they were fucking sitting in the tents next to him, and they're just like, well, like who is that? What the fuck? Like, and they're all talking. They all hear each other. They're all doing. He's doing his business anyway, right? And then she just disappeared, never to be seen again.
Oh wow.
So
that's,
and he's the Yowie. Like, was that some extraterrestrial being that just wanted to come and collect some seed? I mean, where are we going with this, man? Like, I don't.
it's fucking. I've heard crazier.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, from different, all the different UFO abductions and the seeding programs and all this kind of shit. It's like you hear something like that, you think, well, what the fuck, you know?
Yeah, it's not really scary in my opinion. I don't think it's really much more a good time, you know. It's, I think the creepiest
Until
part is
you
not
look on
knowing
Google
who it
Maps
was,
and you're
but
like, bro, that's a good 30 kilometers from anything, you know.
Yeah.
At least, yeah. Totally scrub, nothing.
And she just wanted in and wanted out. Probably during the witching hour as well. Right?
Yeah, right in the middle of the night. Yeah.
some would consider that a good woman, you know.
We don't know if it was a woman.
Well, there you go. That's
right.
true too.
Whatever. Yeah. Wow. There you go.
Well, look, I'm going to throw my little bit of experience there. It's not much. I haven't really seen much. I haven't, when it comes to the whole paranormal side of things, I've had nothing really much to do with it experience-wise. The only thing I've had was like a UFO encounter. That was about it. But the thing is, like, there seems to be a lot of paranormal sort of resonates around children. And so I think when my kids were born, we sort of started hearing things a bit more and here and there. And, there's one day they would come back from shopping or something like that, and the little girls like walked through and looked into one of our rooms and gone, hello. And it's like, who are you talking to? Oh, there's someone sitting over there. And it's like, well, where are they sitting? It's like, oh, you're just over there on the chair. And it's like, well, what do they look like? Oh, I don't know, I can just see them. It's like, hello, and they're not there anymore. It's like, that's just bloody weird. And it's like, this house doesn't really seem to be haunted, but there's times where I've been asleep, or I've been half asleep, you just sort of start getting on the verge of like where you actually do fall asleep. And you can hear these footprints walk around the bed. And you sort of think, oh, it must be one of the kids there trying to climb into bed or whatever you like. So you sort of like look up and waiting to see like a shadow or silhouette of a kid in there, but no kid. But yet these footprints are walking around the bed and the bedroom on the carpet, and it's like, well, what the hell is hovering around us? Like, it's not just me, the wife hears it.
And that's in. So, what's the history of your house? Do you know what your house is? Is it an old house?
No, it's reasonably. It's about 10 years old now, but yeah, it's.
I reckon location. For me, by the sounds of it, I reckon it's like ley line location thing. So if you look at I found even Masons are involved with the laying of towns. The surveys and stuff.
Oh yeah, I went
you
into some towns
will
in Queensland in the middle of nowhere that had Masonic symbols all over them that I need to go back to.
Yeah. And then you'll go and find like an obelisk or a war memorial or something,
stone.
and then you'll find there's something else, and you start lining them up, and they line up with a particular day, like. So you get like moonrises on like the lowest moonrise, the highest moonrise, the summer solstice, winter solstice, the equinox, and you'll have all these monuments lined up. So, and I mean these alignments go from like Fiji to Canberra, and then down to the Melbourne War Memorial. So these they're big lines, and not exactly sure what they're for, but they're processional. So people do processions on them, do marches on them, and things like this. So if you check, you might find. Yeah.
Well, what I would do, Anthony, is I'd go into town wherever you are, and I would go and find the local church, right, and take a photo of the front of the local church for me and send it to me. Right. And I will then tell you whether or not you have Masonic influence in your town, because they're very distinct about how they build the church there, in the symbolism that they use, and some of the features that you'll see on the front of these churches.
Yep.
And I wouldn't be surprised, man.
Cool. Yeah, well, we're on the outskirts of the town itself, so we're probably about a good kilometre away. But even still, this is like where we are now. It's a bit of old farmland, so even still could have like a bit of history there. Something could happen around here. Where it was constructed, you know.
Yeah.
You just never really know, do you?
Well, you're going back. You know, it's 250 years. Yeah, who knows, man? Who knows? You know, I think it's fascinating stuff. I just thought I've got a Yowie thing. Do you want to do? I've got it. So.
Oh, before that, I'll be a ghost one.
You go, mate. You go.
It's my only one, my only ghost one that I had. It reminded me of I was in Thailand. We went to Thailand, me and the family, and went to an old flooded Thailand temple area, and so it was excavated, and they all thought it didn't exist. And I'm like, yeah, okay, let's go. So we all drove out there, and we had to wait to get like a little horse and cart to take us around. And as we're waiting, I smoked at the time, so I've just gone away from everyone else. And there's one of those little spirit houses, and one of those big trees, one of those Bodhi trees. And I'm just gone over there, and I'm just by myself, and I had my little boy at the time, and so I was smoking, and I felt someone grab my arm, grab my hand. This is broad daylight, and grab my hand like come with me, like a kid. And I'm like, Finn, get away from me, like I'm smoking, like keep away, you know. And there was nothing there, no one there.
Wow.
And I freaked out. I was like, what the fuck, man? I remember going to everybody else like white faced, and they're like, what's wrong? And I'm like, someone grabbed my hand, and they're like Finn. Well, it wasn't Finn. What the fuck? Someone just fully just freaked me out. This is kind of sent me down the rabbit hole a lot too. It kind of at that time it brought back all these other ideas, and I was like, well, wow, this this shit's pretty legit, isn't it? You know, someone literally just grabbed my hands like a child, grabbed my hands and tried to get me to go with them somewhere. And I looked down, there's no one there. Creepy as little fuck, eh? Yeah. And I was actually thinking about to actually go back there and get lost in Asia, you know, MIA, missing in Asia. And then I thought, you know what? This place isn't given enough justice for this idea, for things like what's happening in Anthony's house. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's enough spirituality, you know. It started here in a way with the original people. So I'm kind of changed my idea and actually feel, you know, we'll actually explore here more.
Yeah. Oh, I've actually got another one.
There's a haunted mansion not far from my place that I want to go and do a tour of as well.
Interesting. Yeah, here's another one for you. I totally forgot about this one. So this is again in the same house. Now they had my brother and his missus living with me at the time there, and they were sort of sleeping out in like the lounge room because we didn't have a room for them at that time. Anyway, they're sleeping out there, and we were like sort of like, it must have been like probably about that twilight zone sort of time, and everyone was sort of like half asleep but awake at the same time. You know, that sort of, it was weird. Everyone was just awake. Anyway, next thing we hear this big massive slap, like as if someone's getting their hand just slapping against the tiles, and just echoed through the whole house. And everyone's like,
wow,
just silent, like, you know, nothing. Then they're just like, okay, that was weird. Didn't think too much of it. Went back to sleep. Got up next morning, spoke about it, and go, did you guys hear that big, massive slap on the tiles? And like, yeah, what the hell was that? That was like right next to us. It's like, yeah, well, I was hoping you guys could tell us what it was because you guys were out there. And they're like, we got no idea. It just scared the shit out of us because we were just laying there. We were sort of half awake, and I was like, why are we all half awake?
Yeah,
you know?
right.
It's like, this is weird. Like, someone's just sort of woken us up somehow for this specific reason to go and slap against the tile for whatever reason. And it's like, what the hell was that? Because like we couldn't even think
wet,
what
like
it
a
was.
wet sound, or
Well, I don't know.
was it like a wet, heavy towel, or was
No,
it
no,
like someone just slapping the wall with their hand, or
like a skin on tile or
skin on tile? It's a massive slap, you know, with all their might, and just echoed and resonated throughout the whole household. It's like, holy shit.
Ooh.
And yeah, we were
That
all
sounds
around the house.
Someone-
Oh,
That gave me the chills, man.
That's how someone getting killed on the tiles and getting swung onto the tiles.
Yeah. it's just
Or
weird.
you got a goddamn freaking portal in your house, and things are just like getting slapped into the wall. Put this wall here. Fuck. Bang.
Well, I mean, you hear about some of those stories out of Skinwalker and stuff like that, that you'd be in this semi-conscious state and some weird stuff would go down where you weren't kind of asleep, you weren't quite awake.
I agree with that. Yeah, you become
you
like
know.
a transmitter for it or something.
Yeah. You're passing through that veil, man. You're passing through the veil from
Oh fuck yeah!
wakefulness to
Ooh.
sleeping, right? That's
Yeah.
what you're doing, right? You're passing into the next realm, whatever that realm is, that frequency, that vibration.
Yeah, well, whilst this was all
Yeah,
sort of
yeah.
happening, I was sort of like, I was trying to do like, not like a meditation, but I was sort of trying to change my vibration, my frequency in a sense to try and open myself up more into like sort of trying to invite whatever this thing is around, to sort of try and get an idea of what is going around. But then I started getting like a bit of a negative energy in myself, and I started getting like frustrated,
Yeah, you gotta
angry,
look. Yeah,
and
don't.
I was like,
You don't
starting to get
invite
real
nothing.
irritated.
No.
And let me finish.
No, don't open yourself up to that.
No. So, and then I started realizing this. Like, I think it was probably about a good week or so when I started doing this, and I started like, I was just getting real snappy at like the wife and the kids, and just everything was just annoying the absolute crap out of me. And then I sort of realized what was happening. I'm going, could this be from me trying to open up myself to whatever's surrounding this household or whatever?
Absolutely,
Maybe.
it is.
And then that's when I had to go into like, yeah, no, right, I need to change my vibe. I need to go and start thinking, getting back to the positive, start thinking love. Because I'll be laying in bed there and I can just feel myself just getting angry. I just laying in bed before I go to sleep, just going angry. I just get real frustrated. And it's
Yeah,
like,
wow.
no, I need to go and stop this crap. I just need to start really shutting
Have
down.
you,
start to feel-
have you ever thought, Anthony, about having your house cleared, mate? Have you ever run some sage through your house? Or
Not really, because I don't think
just
it's
do a
not
bit of
active
clearing.
enough to really get to justify doing that yet. There's nothing real.
Yeah, that's
recurring.
I've heard that can just fucking irritate them.
yeah, depending
Like
on who
if-
it is, yeah, and what it is.
I mean, the from what I've heard with the whole Yowie Sasquatch ordeal is you can I banish you in the name of Jesus Christ. It's supposed to be the one thing, and you like. The thing is, though, is when you say it, you've got to mean it, which means you've got to understand what you're saying, and it's not coming from a religious idea at all, but the idea of
the reason that
Jesus,
works is the amount of energy that is behind that name and that symbol.
Exactly.
Is-
How much belief you put behind
So-
it, yeah.
yeah, a lot of the American Indians say you've got to go to the Supreme Creator, not the All Creator, but the Supreme Creator. There's a difference in the two of them. So if you say,
Yeah, right.
I banish you in the name of, or I rebuke you in the name of the Supreme Creator, they will also adhere to that and respect that. So
Yeah,
it doesn't,
right.
it's got nothing to do with religion, but
Yeah,
it's
no.
like you said,
what-
it's
what-
your
whatever the-
understanding of what that means. And that's like, even me saying that the Supreme Creator is higher than, say, the All Creator, because the All Creator was created by the Supreme Creator. It's an American Indian idea with this, so it's I can't say exactly where, but my idea of them saying this with the Sabe or the Sasquatch, or even any of the other forest elementals or say fairies or demons or anything like this. They all very much respect this order, and that they do have their order, which is the same as here. Which is, you can always hear the Catholics say it with the as bound here on earth as it is in heaven, when they make new laws within the church. So it's the same reflection of that there is an order that is carried on either side,
It's
and
universal.
that by banishing it or saying I rebuke you in the name of the Supreme Creator, or I rebuke you in the name of Jesus Christ. Whichever fills that role is sufficient for them to actually adhere to that.
Yeah.
And you got to mean it.
Yeah. So that's one of those things I sort of didn't really understand a while ago. Because it's like my biggest hate towards religion. Like people will like go, oh yeah, God is real and does all this stuff and blah 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 blah. And when you hear it from a paranormal aspect, people will be there shit scared of some sort of weird creature or beast, and they go, oh God, save me please, Jesus Christ, blah 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 blah. Praying, and the next minute these demons go away or whatever. And then my argument was, What about when you have like someone who's like literally got a gun pointed to their head, or some poor kid's getting trafficked and raped, or just something there where something awful's happening. This person's praying to God on all their might, and going, please save me, I don't want to die or something. But yet nothing happens from God's side of things. And it's like, how can you trust and believe in a religion when they can't even save that person, but they can go and save someone from a bloody spirit or a demon that's possessing their house or whatever? And that's where I called out the bullshit with religion. That's what I hated against them. Like, this almighty power is supposed to save you, but can't save you from, reality. And that sort of things.
There's always polarity, man. There's always the dark and the light, Like, I've known plenty of heavily religious people, and they have someone close die to them, and they try and pray it away, and it doesn't work. And that normally causes a bit of a mental break in those people, because it's like you're trying to channel the Almighty.
They have to justify it.
Yeah, it's an odd one, man. Well, do you want to go down a cryptid track?
Yeah, quickly, let's go. I've got a little bit of time. The missus is already starting to get at me.
Yeah, sorry.
So, let's get into it.
Yeah, Triffon's got one. Yeah, I've heard Triffon's on this.
Okay, let's have a look here. Can I?
We do have a good history here in Australia.
Yeah.
Recorded history.
Here we go. That's what I want to do. Okay. Can you put that up on the screen, fine sir, please? So this is a camping trip. This is a mate of mine went for a bit of an explore, and he found this.
You can see that all right.
That's a good pace then, isn't it?
Yeah, that's about a good metre step. So they're toes. Yeah.
Yep.
It's only 4 toes, or is it sort of smushed together to 5 toes?
It's running through the mud.
Is there a collection of 2 next to each other? Oh, there's 2 there, isn't there?
What are those ones? They look like hoof
Yeah,
prints
that's a
or
bit
something.
smaller, that one.
I would like to have a look at the other ones there in front of me a bit further on to get a better idea of the actual footprint, because that to me looks like they're on their like tippy toe sort of, if you get what I mean, like they're running on their toes.
Something's run through there.
I mean, they're stride if it was something like it was a... Is there 2 there at the top? Is there 2 next to each other? Like,
it's
a dog
like
will have 2 footprints next to each other, and then another pace.
Yeah, no.
They'll have the 2 and then 1 and then 2 and 1 kind of.
I've
like
got
a grouping.
some other photos there. I just found that video. Basically, there was 3. It looked like something had run through there, because where we were, the massive floods in Queensland, the water was almost up to where that was. Right, it was hell wet there for a long time, and it looked like something with paws ran through that area, right? And there has been the classic black cat sightings out that way as well. And yeah, as far as like camping goes, the first campsite we went to, we were surrounded by scrub, and there was heavy weird vibes, man. Like heavy, no one wanted to go and collect firewood, right? Like in the dark, in the night. There was heavy yowie vibes is what we were calling it that night. Whereas we go to the second campsite, and not as bad. The energy was fine there. However, when we laid on the ground looking up at the Milky Way, there was more than one of the boys said it sort of felt like we were being watched by something. And yeah, cryptids, man, they're out there. Might have been Sassy's pet.
That's gonna freak you out. I remember we went camping up at Sunny Corner. We went gold penning, and it was two families. So it was us and another family, We went down the creek and we did some panning, and there was only one little hollow of water too. So we dug, and as we dug, we hit some water. But we found some gold, went back up and cooked and had food, had something to eat. The kids went to bed, and then we all sat up, had a few drinks, and then went up. We all went to bed, and then we camped at the top of the hill, and it was only like a big roundabout. So it was in one of the state forests, and it wasn't an open campsite, but a few people had camped there before. And so we're up there. It was windy, but the middle of the night, I woke up, your witching hour, and I could hear like cackling or like kids playing down in the bottom where we were fossicking earlier. You know what I mean? And like, I knew there was wild dogs, there's possible wild dogs and things like that, but it sounded like, I don't know, like cackle. I mean, the closest thing I kind of heard was like foxes, like foxes having that cackle sound. So a real weird sound. I never, it was like, oh, that's a weird sound. And then the next morning, the other family got up and said that they were laughing because I'd gotten up to go to the toilet, and then I was so drunk that I tried to get into the wrong tent. I tried to get into their tent. And I'm like, no, I never got up. What do you mean? And they were laughing. Shut up! No, you were. I never got up. Like, that freaked me out, because I'm like, I never fucking got up, And then that night I heard that, and this is before I really looked into any of this Yowie bullshit or any of this other stuff. And I'm just sitting there scratching my head, going like, who the fuck tried to get in their tent, man? Mm. They had kids in there. Like, what the fuck, man? Like, that was, and I said, I heard noises. I thought they were wild dogs. And then that morning we're packing up, and then the farmer next door, he drives up on his big 4-wheeler, like this big quad bike trailer and everything. He drives up, and there's this old fella, he's got his hat on, and he's old. That was his parents' farm, so he's inherited right there. And this guy's old, and he's just looking out in the distance, looking over the foothills and everything. And he's like, "You guys camp up here last night?" And we're like, "Yeah, we just went fossicking, did this and that." And it's like, "Oh yeah, there's dingoes up here." I'm like, "Dingoes? Fucking what? Dingoes?" I thought wild dogs, because the state mined fire and everything that flushed a lot of the wild dogs out from around those areas. So he's going, "Yep, dingoes. I've seen them dragging sheep down into the bush down there and this and that." I'm thinking, oh, fuck, maybe that's what it was, And then I got home, and then after this Yowie stuff, I looked up and going, dingoes in sunny corner area, or Triffon and River area. I looked up, I couldn't find anything. And I'm sitting there now, I'm thinking, but who actually tried to get into their tent? Like, that's weird, Like,
Might have been a Sheila coming back.
To this day, I still can't figure out.
Actually, I tell you what.
Just succubus, mate. I don't know. I don't know what the fuck. I got chills now.
I tell you what, boys. It doesn't seem like we're getting any. There's no one wants to share a story. So, do you want to finish it up, mate?
No, that's all good, man. I think we should finish her up there. Unfortunately, no one wants to come and join in and share their scary stories. Which is unfortunate, but we can do it again another time.
I'll finish it with. That same camping spot where those prints were found, right? So those prints were found at the top of the hill behind us where we were camping. And I woke up, witching hour again to do go and do a wee. Got up out of the swag, and I've got a fully enclosed swag, right? And got up out of the swag to, do a wee. And, I was sort of a bit awake, you know what I mean? We'd gone to bed pretty early that night, and I thought, I'll just, I might sit up in, outside the swag and have a smoke and, just enjoy the stars or whatever, And like the alarm bells in your head, right? It was like, no, you're not. You get back in that swag and you zip it up right now, like right now. And I did, right? And a period of time
Was that
later,
your voice, do you think?
I don't know, man. But a period of time later, I thought I heard something walking, because we had a tarp down and we put the swags on the tarp, and I heard something moving on the tarp, and I just stayed stock still, right? As I say, because it was cold, like it was bloody cold. It was wintertime this year, and so I was fully buttoned up, But my mate, his head was exposed, man. And I'm just thinking, you know, what is that thing that's walking around on the top? He didn't flinch. Nothing happened. But yeah, there was just like, it was immediate too. It was like, when you get the smokes out, start rolling one. I was like, nah, you button this up right now. Button up. Zip everything up. And yeah, within 5 minutes of me doing that, I heard movement. So who knows, man? Maybe the black cat lives up there. You know what I mean? Like,
I've heard some of the Yowie stories where someone's on a tent and they wake up and they freak out and they're like, there's fucking something looking. And then all of a sudden the fucking thing starts pissing on the tent.
Oh, no.
Yeah, fucking some crazy stories there, like kind of weird shit like that. And the other one is that the thing was there the whole fucking time watching you.
yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's actually put that idea into your head, and then you're just like, I'm gonna go to bed, and then you go in there, and then that was it, just stepping away, not coming up. You know? Oh, fuck that.
Yeah. Jeez.
Freaky.
Well, guys, if anyone's going to come on quickly,
Or even if it was a big cat or not.
come on and share their experiences, we'd love to get you on there to go and share your spooky stories. So I know someone's got to have something out there quickly before you end the show. So just quickly, one I was going to bring up. Have you guys ever dabbled in the Ouija boards?
Oh yeah.
Nah, stay well clear. Nah,
Yeah, no,
never have.
No, definitely. Oh yeah, man. Yeah. Oh, look, I could tell you a Ouija board experience, but it there's a few things that interact with it. Do I share this one?
Well, hopefully give you a bit of time there to go to Yark, so someone can come and sneak on.
Well,
in
you're
and go and
creating
tell
a
those
poltergeist.
stories,
I'll give you the idea that they actually create a poltergeist within you or in that room, and unless you close it, it's going to stay open. So you could even do the same thing to a photo, turn a photo into a Ouija board, and create that as a type of poltergeist. So
look, listen, I'll tell the story. There's a few caveats that need to be taken into account, right? So I used to like I was a bit of an enigma in high school, boys. I made the first grade footy team, but I also did all the plays as well. You know what I mean? Why did I do all the plays? All the chicks did all the plays, man. Are you serious, right? We all get changed in the same room. I'm not silly, man. A set of stories for another totally different podcast. Anyway, long story short, we had our after party. Now, we're at this weird house at the after party. Now, this time during my high school period may or may not have coincided with the time that I first smoked weed and got the proper effects of that. Just that needs to be said, okay? And anyway, I'm wandering around, maybe a little bit under the weather, if you know what I mean, boys. And I walked into this room, and some of the girls and a couple of guys from the play that we were doing were around a Ouija board. And there was a shadow over the room, okay? And I sat down to just observe. I didn't join, I didn't touch the thing. But it was doing some weird things. Like this thing was writing something very quickly. And I don't even remember now whether, I know someone was trying to write the letters down, but I don't remember whether or not anyone did. And this is where it gets weird. Okay? Now this is just what I saw. So like I said, there was a shadow over the room. And there, you know, when you talk like this, actually what's interesting, layer it onto what Anthony said about the half awake, that trance-like state, right? I was not part of the Ouija board, but I was in the room. And from my perception, okay, and I know this is going to sound crazy, but like this dark shadow thing formed like a cloud on the ceiling, right? And it was like full Hollywood stuff, man. And this cloud started spinning, right? And then this thing came up from the Ouija board into the cloud, right? And it was cold and it was dark and it was not good, man. Whatever was going on was not cool. And
manifesting.
Oh yeah,
potential energy, man, and shit.
I don't even know, man. Like But then it was like this green thing, this glowing thing went into this cloud, and it was dark. It was weird stuff, man. And then I grabbed the Ouija board and basically just grabbed it and threw it against the wall. And then almost immediately the room changed, right? Because I wouldn't have said there was a light on. But when everything came back around, there was a light on in the room, right? But I remember walking in there and it was dark, right? And then everybody sort of came out of this trance-like state. And I tried to approach people about, what just happened in here, right? I know what I came in and what I saw, but I'm, you know what I mean? Like, what just happened in here, right?
Fuck?
And none of them, and I remember this, none of them acknowledged what happened, right? Which is why I have those caveats in there. You know, was I super high and seeing things, man? Maybe. However, everyone was a bit weirded out after that, right? Like they'd experienced something, but no one wanted to talk about it. No one mentioned the Ouija board, right? It was an odd thing. And I don't know how to, like, from my memory and my perception, that's what happened. And I don't know, man. Right? I can't.
Fucking gnarly.
I don't know. Right? And none of the people there acknowledged what happened. None of them, they all sort of they were in that trance-like state, and I watched them sort of wake up, you know what I mean? And sort of look around.
They felt they felt like that they were violated, and they don't actually want to talk about it. You know what I mean?
They didn't, whatever happened, they didn't want to mention
we just fucked up. Yeah. They've got this understanding that, yeah.
Whatever happened, that collective consciousness that they were generating was not good, and no one wanted to acknowledge it after the fact. And I've never told that story on the record before because it's crazy, man. You know what I mean? Like, that's some crazy shit. You know, and I was probably, as I say, I was 14, 15, may or may not have been really, really, really high.
But even still, like, you know, even being under the influence, you sort of still have a concept of reality in a sense.
Yeah. Like, I wasn't.
For me, this is a lot of the reason why I've been going down this, you know, these rabbit holes. Is I want to know how to, like what we were talking about earlier today, about the positive aspects of these things, and what do we do about it? And for me, is things like knowing that there's you can say things like, I rebuke you in the name of Jesus Christ if you've been baptized. If you haven't, the Supreme Creator. I mean, even I would use Jesus Christ. I haven't been baptized, but I understand that it was a conscious wave across all of Earth.
There's other things you can use from a clearing sense. Look, I've already said enough weird stuff tonight. I have cleared many houses. I've cleared many houses before, and I could tell you some stories about that maybe that's for another day. And there's another thing you can do, and it's very similar to what you're saying, Grub, is that you use the violet flame. You can use golden source energy, because everything's energy, man. You can create an energy.
You talk to
grid,
them as well, you know.
Right? Absolutely, yeah.
If they're conscious, you talk to them and say, look, you know, I
tell you what.
You don't want to invite them in like Anthony was doing before. There's a very different thing in showing them the respect for their nature, for what they are. If they're an elemental way, you know, they're perfect for what they are. You know, they're like angels in that way.
If you're clearing a house, absolutely. If you're clearing a house and you find something and it tries to fight you or whatever it is, right? You do talk to it. So listen, I've got no issues with you existing. However, you can't exist here anymore. Okay, this house is not your domain. It's time for you to go. And they either choose to go of their own volition, or you can sweep them through with golden light or violet flame, or there's a number of different things. Sage does work, but Grub is also right. Depending on the power of the element of the spirit or what you're actually dealing with, sage can piss them off. However, it's a good starting point. If it pisses them off, then at least you know where you are. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
It's true.
I tell you what, you're making me remember all my spooky stories. I thought for all money, I saw a demon once. Okay, it was in the valley in Brisbane, 2006, 7, somewhere in there, right? And there's this old, you can't go there anymore, but there's this old underground, dodgy, old, dingy eatery. Like back in 07, it was dingy, right? And for whatever reason, we found ourselves down there getting a feed. I don't know what we were doing. It was me and a couple of friends. And this thing walked past, and as it walked past, it was almost like it froze time, and that's the only way I describe it. But it was full stereotypical, right? It had a wide brim hat, a long coat. It was bearded.
Ooh, that's the one.
It had sunglasses on, right? And it was muttering in what I can only say was, and you know what language, like that dark language, you know what I mean? I'm not even going to try and replicate it here now. But it was muttering in like Latin with, again, if you started muttering
Enoch,
Latin.
the language of Enoch or something.
Yeah. If you muttered Latin through that voice thing you were doing earlier, you know what I mean? That's what it sounded like.
Again, I don't know who you're talking about.
Right?
This wasn't...
Yeah, I know. Whoever, when the Grim Reaper stole our souls earlier tonight, we can get him back, and he does it.
I say
then
rape.
This thing sat down like 2 or 3 tables from us, and I'm like, I knew it was there, and it was like no one around me knew it was there, right? And then I remember this thing looking at me, and I looked at it, and then as soon as it recognised that I could see it, it left, and then everything went back to normal. Right, but and this was probably a 15 to 20 second experience, but it like when it walked past me, the energy of this thing was just like death, man. You know what I mean? Like it was bad, like as malevolent of anything that I've ever felt. And yeah, but it was full stereotypical, and I wonder then, did I manifest that vision of what it is? With all the X-Files and Angel and Buffy the Vampire Slayer, you know what I mean? Did I Supernatural, did I manifest what it looked like through my own perception of what I thought that?
That's the Hat Man.
Yeah, it's the Hat Man, and like
and then when you hear about it now, and you're like, "Fuck!" Everybody apparently sees this motherfucking dude.
Yeah,
yeah, man.
Someone goes, "What the fuck?" Shadow Man's got like a costume closet. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, yeah. And it was full stereotypical trench coat, beard, hat, glasses, and I'll never forget that. I'll never forget that experience. So that, like, I think that's the closest to true evil that I've ever been. Like, whatever that thing was darkness incarnate. It was, man. Yeah. So you guys are you're digging out all my crazy fucking stories.
This is good. I'm enjoying
That's
it.
gnarly. Gnarly. You got to try to figure out what days they were. For like the astrological side of it.
Well, it was winter. I know it was winter because I remember it was being cold. Right? It didn't. When I first saw this thing walking through the eatery, the fact that it had a jacket on I didn't register as being odd. Actually, I think we were in the eatery because it was cold and we wanted to get out of the rain and the cold in the valley.
Is it still there?
It's defunct now. I don't know whether it's still there. No, I'm too old to go to the valley now. Been there, done that, got the t-shirt.
Do you sort of remember like how you were sort of feeling in that before you actually seen this guy or thing? Like you're like, what was your sort of like your emotion?
I remember it being a strange day, and I remember walking into that eatery going, "What the fuck is this place?" Right? I'd never seen it before, and I did go back there a few times after that experience just to look at it from a different perspective. It's this old dingy eatery in this shopping complex that was probably big in the 80s, and you know what I mean? Like it's old, 70s and 80s, and yeah, you had to go down at least one level, even 2 levels to get.
So you're underground?
You're underground, yeah.
Oh, well, that's got something to do with it.
Yeah.
People say that. Yeah.
Definitely.
And I remember it being an odd day. I remember it being a strange day. Like, what am I doing in the valley during the day? You know, when you go to the valley, you're in there during the night. You know what I mean? No one goes to the valley during the day. So what are we doing? I don't even remember why we were there. But I remember getting out of we wanted to go inside somewhere to get the feed. And one of the boys we were with said, I know there's an eatery. There's a weird eatery down here. We'll just go down in here. But I remember it being an odd, energetic day. And I remember looking around the eatery and feeling like it was an odd place. You know what I mean? Like there was no major chains in there, if you know what I mean. There was no Maccas. It was all weird, family-done businesses. You know what I mean? Like there was the Chinese and, you know, there wasn't many. Like the eatery wasn't full there either.
Then you go on the underbelly version.
Yeah, and it was just an odd experience, man. It was just a really odd experience that, as I say, and it was so cold and evil, and it honestly felt like, see, I mean, I've got stories about time as well that we can discuss. I fully think you can manipulate three-dimensional time. You've got to pay for it, right? There's a balance and a scale there. However, can you speed up or slow down time? Absolutely you can, right?
Time magic, even sex magic can be used for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this is the thing. When you're with the right woman, you know, 10 minutes can feel like an hour and a half, depending on what you're doing. You know what I mean? Or vice versa. You slow time. You know,
10 minutes. What's the secret?
Time up. However, I remember being cold, and this thing, it walked behind me. I remember that, right? So it walked, I sort of saw it coming in my peripheral, coming that way. And as it walked behind me, as I say, cold, dark, evil things, man. The muttering of the Latin, well, we know in the language of Enoch, like thing I said, and then it sat down at a table. And I couldn't, it was it's like a train wreck. You can't look away, right? Because I knew that it was there. And I knew it was bad, but I'm like, I couldn't help but look. You know, the hero always looks, you know what I mean? Like everybody looks, right? And when I looked at it, it looked at me. And as soon as it could see that I could see it, it left.
That's interesting. Normally that's when shit gets wild, but
usually,
it's it decided to interesting.
Well, it was the eatery had a lot of beings in it, whether they were people or not, I don't know. But it had a lot of beings in it. It would have, if it had caused a scene, it would have been quite a scene. And why it was there and what it was there for, I don't know.
It's very interesting.
Well, I've got one there I want to finish it off with.
I like the idea.
Yep, let's finish up.
So I dabbled a little bit in as a kid there, like stupid kids as we do. We sort of dabble a little bit as what would you call it? Maybe witchcraft, bit of a spell sort of stuff. You know, it's a bit of a weird stuff. I don't know. You would have ever done the light as a feather.
Yeah, light as a feather, stick as a board, light as a
stone or something. Yeah, you did all that sort of stuff there. I can't really remember if we did get any height or anything like that. It might have felt like a little bit at times there. I don't really think so. It's probably more of our imaginations more than anything. And I also remember doing another one there where, obviously, candles are lit up everywhere. You know, you set the scene, set the mode, and we were doing this water bowl. So water in a bowl, and you get the candlestick, and you sort of ask the devil or a demon or something like that, going, "What am I going to be when I die?" So you sort of drip the candle wax into the bowl, and it starts creating little shapes inside the bowl. And what came up for me was a headless mermaid, or merman.
Right.
Which is a really weird thing, going like, oh cool, I can be a mermaid when I'm dead. And they're like, no, you're headless, you don't have a head. I was like, oh, well, that's not as much fun, but anyway. Yeah, it's just sort of weird shit like that. So, I don't know, it's sort of a weird sort of stuff as you do as a kid. I don't know where we sort of find these ideas of how to do these, like especially back in the 90s. You can't go on the internet back then and go and sort of figure out what kind of witchcrafty spells are going to work or not work. You know, there's sort of some shit that we sort of get in our heads or hear from someone else, I suppose.
But is this stuff like I was talking about earlier, boys? You know, do we quest after this natural magic? You know, and I say magic with a K. You know what I mean? Magick. You know, because I dabbled in that sort of stuff as a teenager as well. And do we go after this because it's another genetic echo? Like we know that there is understanding and power within the symbols, within the pentacle, within the elements, right? You know, this is what we're talking about. You know, and what does the pentacle represent? And thing is, if you look, if I point there, I'm pointing directly at the pentacle that's on the door of the studio, because the pentacle originally, although it's a satanic symbol, it was interpreted by the church. It's a symbol of protection. And we talk about candles, you talk about water, you talk about air, light as a feather, stiff as a board, right? The 5 points of the star, it's earth, air, fire, water. And what's the last one, Grub? What are we playing in? It's the ether.
For the fit, yeah. 4 elements, and then the fifth,
and then the thing that joins everything together, right? And you know, maybe these stories and these spirits and all this sort of stuff, they're coming out of the ether, man. That's the thing that joins everything else together. Yeah, it's weird. Like, why do we chase that magic? You know?
Mine was ancient Egyptian stuff. When I was a kid, one of the first books I picked up was this big photo book of Tutankhamun's artifacts. And I remember being 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, and I started painting, like drawing his death mask. You know, the Tutankhamun's death mask. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And just like I fucking knew there's something like intrinsic in what they were doing. And then you hear, there was for me, like I never tried to do any of the magic stuff. It's kind of weird, but I always used to argue with my brother, who's that fucking astrophysicist now. He's masters and shit. and I argue with him still to this day, and I like look at a tree and explain the tree to him, and he's like, "Nah, it's the exact opposite for everything," you know. So I don't know, but I think, I mean, now kids are gonna be getting into crazier shit than Ouija boards. I mean, there's 10-year-olds coming up saying they've been doing it now, and but I mean, it's not as so much that, but now because of what we're doing, we need to be able to give explanation to our kids about why that is important.
Yeah.
You know, don't tell them not to do it, but say, when you do this, you actually, that's just a piece of cardboard and a plastic cup. Yeah. The actual energy that's happening and manifesting is from you. Mm-hmm. You actually have those powers. Use them wisely, because otherwise you'll fuck up shit.
Well, here's a funny story maybe to finish on, because it's about 8:30 now and we've all got kiddlywinks to sort out. Yeah. However, working at a spare parts store, this is later on, right, in my early 20s, after dabbling in magic and black candles and different types of spells and stuff, right? Don't know whether any of it worked. If I look back, maybe I fucked my life up a little bit through doing some of that stuff, but it's neither here nor there. But just by chance, I'm going past the, so we had these big shelves. We put all the stock on for the delivery driver to deliver when they come on their rounds, right? So they go to all the workshops, yeah? And there's a plastic bag sitting on the shelf. And inside that plastic bag is black candles, there's red wax, there's parchment, I'm like, that's a dark spell kit, whatever that is, right? And this young girl who was the delivery driver at the time, I was really drawn to talk to her. I'm like, listen, do you actually know what you're doing with that stuff, right? Because and she goes, oh, I'm using it for a love spell. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, don't fucking do that, okay? That is a bad idea, okay?
I've got the lamb at home.
Yeah, do not do that, okay? I actually ended up taking the stuff off her. I said, listen, I will buy this off you, but you can't. I don't think it's a good idea for you to have this stuff and to follow through with what you're doing now, because you have no idea what you're actually doing, you know? There's a reason we use the elements. There's a reason we use sacred geometry. There's a reason. You know, Randall Carlson the other day basically said that he'd done enough magic spells and testing of elements to say that it was real, and then he wouldn't say any more, the bastard, right? However, there's a reason that old magic continued on, that elemental magic, that symbolic magic that wound its way through. And again, he's wound through all the Masonic stuff, through all the churches and all this sort of stuff. You should see Angus and I are going to go into the cathedral in Brisbane City. It's amazing, but it's all Masonic. We're going to go in there with a triptych eye. We're going to go in there with a
fucking Adelaide
symbolism,
wouldn't it?
Adelaide would be awesome for it.
Yeah,
Sydney's awesome for it as well. Sydney's awesome for it as well. The big cathedral.
You're going to go to the universities as well.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all creepy stuff, man. But yeah, don't. I think the thing is, don't play with things you don't understand, because you could be tapping into energies that you don't understand. Because
your discernment and your gut feelings, like those feelings that you have when
well, I
shit
saw
changes.
that bag of stuff, right? Was that bag of stuff? I'm like, what is that? Whoever's that is, I need to talk about it right now. And yeah, she's like, oh, I'm going to do a love spell. I'm like, no, you're not. You're not doing that. No one's doing that.
Well, the biggest thing I can sort of recommend on that too is, like, if people are going to sort of dabble in, because people will try and dabble and stuff like that. The biggest thing I can sort of offer as a bit of advice is, don't drag people in with you. Do it all solely by yourself. Don't try and drag others in you to sort of try and help you out or anything like that. Because if something does go haywire, it's just you yourself that's got to go and suffer the consequences of shit going wrong, and not the other people who are innocent bystanders and that sort of nature.
And remember that everything's energy too, right? And if you're trying to manipulate, well, let's take time for instance, right? Absolutely, you can speed up and slow down time. However, if you do that, and I may or may not know this from personal experience, if you manipulate time to a certain degree, you will pay for it, right? There is a balance in this universe. There is a dark, there is a light, there is a balance. And if you try and dabble in things that A, you don't understand, and B, you've got no business dabbling in, then the cost of that might be higher than you imagine. And you've got to be careful, real careful.
Definitely. Well, boys, I think we'll finish it there, eh? And yeah, look, this is fun, sort of talking on this whole spooky, scary sort of side of things. It's really good. I like hearing these. I get that good little chilly vibe to it. You know, it's really good. I quite enjoy it.
Well, you dragged some stuff out of me. You made me tell some stories that I wasn't.
I'm hoping we can see that connection. How the extraterrestrial side is almost identical in what we're talking about tonight. You know?
Yeah, paranormal, ET,
I think they're all the
sort of
same.
things, definitely.
Yeah. Paranormal, ET, spirits, demons, it's all the same.
So it seems very, very, that's the part that I'm trying to emphasize in all this, is because it's, if we start looking at all the same way, then we can actually start seeing patterns.
Yeah.
Strange, you know.
Well, I think
geometry.
I think that'll be the topic for our next segment on encountering the coded realms there, boys. I think we've got one there for where does it all come into the paranormal ET sort of things.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. Yeah. No, listen, boys, I enjoy these. I enjoy these, and I appreciate you both and appreciate the time. And until next time, mate.
No, definitely, guys. Thanks you very much
Good
for
time.
joining in. And that will do it, folks, for this episode of Encounters Down Under. I hope you enjoyed the show, and remember, you can also get involved in the show by joining the Facebook page and getting in on the live streams. Also, please be sure to share with your friends and family to help us grow and potentially find our next guest on the show. If you or you know someone who has had an encounter, please get in touch with me through our Facebook page via Messenger or email at australianUFOsightings@outlook.com.au. I look forward to seeing you on the next Encounter Down Under. Hooroo!